Hello, everyone, and many thanks for your attention for joining this stream, and many thanks to all the members of our community who will either join later on or will watch this video in a recording after live stream. Today is 19th of May. Now it's 11 o'clock in the morning, Moscow time, and first of all, let me introduce a new project on my channels, which is morning news from Moscow program that is going to be during the live streams on both my channels on YouTube and Rumble platforms. I did spoke about it yesterday during the community chat that I also made on both platforms, and truly grateful for all the members of community who will join yesterday's stream. But of course, majority of our community don't know about these changes, and hopefully in several days time everyone who is a regular to this project will find out about it. So let me say a few words about this project itself. So it will be streamed on both platforms. I will have a morning news at 11 o'clock Moscow time in the morning, and evening news program also in live stream at 7 o'clock in the evening, Moscow time. And I will try my best to be as informative in these news programs as I possibly can. And the programs itself are going to be a news segment, obviously. And after news segment, if during the day or during the live stream, I will receive a question or the comment with donation through donation platforms, PayPal, Boosty, Coffee. I made their account on Coffee platform also, so you can buy me coffee if you want to. And if I see questions little earlier during the day on my Patreon page from Patreons, also during round, by the way, if I see any questions in super chat on Rumble during the stream, of course I will react on it, but after news segment. First goes news segment, and then if I receive any questions or comments, I will highlight this. If there is none of that, then I will end the program after news segment. Hopefully this new addition will help me to, first of all, be more useful for community, more informative, and secondly, hopefully these changes will incentivize more members of our communities to support this media project, independent media project, financially, so that project will survive and I be able to continue this work full time. That's been said, dear friends. Hopefully I did explain well enough. And as I said, anyways, more and more members of our community probably will learn about these changes in upcoming days. And what is also important, I think, after live stream, I will make several short videos from these streams, and I will publish those videos also, so that members of our community who might not have time to watch full video, they will have opportunity to at least take attention, pay attention to these shorter videos on certain topics that they might be interested in. So let's see how this goes, dear friends. And well, that's being said, let's go through some news now. And first of all, let me start with this report from RIA Novosti. And I think many members of our community are going to find this report very important and interesting, that Russian armed forces captured a group of mercenaries from their PMC Mozart in Zaporozhye region. So 23 foreign mercenaries were killed as a result of Russian army strikes on Zaporozhye village of Novoandreevka, and 7 more were taken prisoners. Sergei Lebedev, coordinator of the Nikolaev pro-Russian underground, told RIA Novosti. Novoandreevka, this is a quote, by the way, Novoandreevka, destruction of a company of PMC Mossad, foreign mercenaries, enemy losses, 23 killed, 7 captured, citizens of Great Britain and Canada. Lebedev said he noted that captured documents and captured radios serve as evidences that this neutralized foreign mercenaries and captured mercenaries were most likely citizens of United Kingdom and Canada. This is not the first time when Russian troops are neutralizing groups of foreign mercenaries, English-speaking mercenaries from UK, Canada. There were several instances when Australian mercenaries end up being killed or captured by Russian troops. And I think during the day, most likely we will receive some more details, some more information. Maybe video will appear of these captured mercenaries. So if any additional news difference, of course, I will share it on my Telegram and Twitter X page and during the next updates. That's being said, let's go through some other news. And we have this report from RIA Novosti that Russian troops liberated the village of Bagatir in the DPR, and this information is confirmed by Defense Ministry. Earlier, I reported about progress of the Russian armed forces in this direction, but Defense Ministry of the Russia just yesterday confirmed this information, so it is official now. Bagatir is under full Russian control. Also, RIA Novosti is reporting that air defense forces on duty shut down 35 drones over Russian territories, 35 drones that were launched by Kyiv regime with assistance of NATO member states. 26 drones were intercepted over the Crimea, so it was a quite a large-scale attempt to strike Crimean Peninsula. 8 drones were intercepted over the Bryansk region and 1 drone over the Belgorod region. At this point, as you can see, dear friends, there are no precise information if there was any casualties on the ground or more or less significant damage. If any update on that, of course, I will share additional information on my channels. RIA Novosti is also reporting that in Zaporozhye region, 3 Leopard tanks and 3 German-made Leopard tanks and 2 US-made Bradley infantry fighting vehicles were destroyed as a result of unsuccessful counteroffensive operations of the Kyiv regime's forces and as a result of Russian long-range artillery strikes. Let's go through some details here. So 3 Leopard 1 A5 tanks and 2 M2 Bradley infantry fighting vehicles have been destroyed by strikes as a result of strikes in Ukrainian-controlled parts of Zaporozhye region. Sergei Lebedev, coordinator of the Nikolaev pro-Russian underground, told RIA Novosti. This is the very same person, by the way, that reported about neutralization of a group of mercenaries from United Kingdom and Canada that I mentioned minutes ago. And we have quote from statements of Lebedev that he said during his conversation with RIA Novosti. So Rabotina counterattack was a thwarted counteroffensive, basically, of the Kyiv regime's forces. 2 US-made M2 Bradley infantry fighting vehicles were destroyed. Up to platoon of infantry, enemy infantry, was dispersed. And the Malaya Takmachka settlement, also in Zaporozhye region, the result of artillery shelling from Russian side, 3 Leopard 1 A5 tanks were destroyed. Lebedev told RIA Novosti, a news agency. He added that as a result of strikes in Malaya Takmachka, also bunker shelter of the Ukrainian armed forces was destroyed. And well, this is quite a significant losses, isn't it, on side of on Zaporozhye sector of their front line. Let me now show you settlements that's been mentioned in this previous few news. So this is Novoandreevka settlement, dear friends, on the southern western side of Orekhov city, where British and Canadian mercenaries were neutralized, and there are also 7 of them were captured. So this is that settlement, and I guess because settlement itself did not yet marked in a gray zone or as a disputed between the sides, I guess potentially Russian DRGs were operating in vicinity of this settlement, and it was Russian DRG's operation that basically eliminated this foreign mercenary unit. And this is a Malaya Takmachka settlement, by the way, on the southern eastern side of Orekhov city in Zaporozhye region, where three Leopard 1 A5 tanks were destroyed. And when it comes to Rabotino, many members of our community, of course, are familiar with this settlement. Kiev regime's forces, for whatever reason, take on a suicidal operation to conduct an offensive towards Rabotino. And I guess in this gray zone, these units of Kiev regime, armored groups of Kiev regime that were operating with assistance of two M1 or M2, sorry, Bradley infantry fighting vehicles were neutralized. So I will say significant activization in the Zaporozhye sector that lately is relatively calm compared to other sectors of the front line. Let's continue with some more news now, dear friends. And when it comes to German-made Leopard tanks, obviously Leopard 1 A5 tanks are obsolete at this point. They are very older. They might have a proper gun and their fire system in general, but armor of those vehicles definitely not up to the task. And it's not just Leopard 1, by the way. Even Leopard 2 tanks are not necessarily obsolete, but quite vulnerable, because we have this report that Rostec, Russian corporation in defense industry, has identified vulnerabilities in the protection of the German Leopard 2 tanks. So Rostec specialists have studied the German Leopard 2 tanks that were captured by Russian forces, and there is quite a number of these tanks now in Russian hands, and identified serious vulnerabilities in its defense. The state corporation told RIA Novosti the capture of the Leopard 2 A6, which is one of the latest models, by the way, of these Leopard 2 tanks, was handed over to the state corporation's experts to evaluate its military technical characteristics. The Leopard 2 tank, and we have quote here, Leopard 2 tank studied by our specialist has been found to have vulnerabilities in its protection. They are related to both their thickness and the composition of the armor and their internal layout of the combat vehicle. The tank's survivability may be insufficient in modern warfare conditions. For example, when attacked from different angles by drones with a cumulative warhead and modern anti-tank missile systems, Rostec said. Experts have concluded that Leopard 2's protection is focused on classic anti-tank factors typical of past decades and does not fully meet today's requirements. Rostec also noted that Ukrainian armed forces are armed with various versions of their outdated Leopard 1 tanks, which have largely lost their effectiveness. And we have another quote. Today, the most adapted to the modern combat operations serial tanks are the Russian T-72B3M, T-80 BVM, and T-90M vehicles. They have improved all-round protection against drones and anti-tank missiles, from anti-cumulative grids to dynamic elements and other devices, the state corporation concluded. And well, I can understand if some members of our community from Germany or UK or US will dispute the statement of Rostec that Russian tanks are more adapted to modern warfare, because these countries that I mentioned are producing, Germany produces Leopard 2 tanks, UK Challenger 3 is supposed to be in production now, which is continuation of Challenger 2 models, and the US is, of course, used to produce at least Abrams tanks. I'm not sure if Abrams is still produced in US. As far as I know, Pentagon was looking for some new vehicle that can potentially take the place of Abrams tanks in upcoming decades. But anyways, I think due to quite a vast combat experience that Russian tankers, Russian engineers have now in regards to Russian tanks, obviously, most likely, Russian engineers are in a better position to basically make sure that Russian tanks are better adapted to modern warfare than tanks from hostile countries, let's say. It should not be surprised anyways, isn't it? Interesting news, I think. Manufacturer of the Leopard 2 tanks, Rheinmetall, that is, if I remember correctly, probably will pay close attention to statements from Rostec. And I'm quite sure they are also studying experience of Leopard tanks in the zone of special military operation to improve, first of all, protection of these tanks, because when it comes to firepower, Leopard 2s are right there next to best MBTs in the world. Russian ones, US or the British. But protection, that is a whole different story. And weight, by the way. Achilles heel of Western tanks is weight. Despite heavy protection, they are still vulnerable for drones, and because of this focus on frontal protection, especially, they are just extremely heavy. And this is a big issue. And when it comes to tanks, by the way, we have this report that I shared on my Telegram and Twitter X page that US officials, according to ABC, question use of Australia's retired tanks as vehicles, as useful vehicles for Ukraine. So US officials question the wisdom of sending Australian Abrams tanks to Ukraine, ABC reports. Their ABC confirmed that the process of loading the first of 49 vehicles into a cargo ship had recently begun, but the 49 Abrams tanks were promised to Ukraine, by the way, by Australian government. So first batch is already being loaded on the vessels and probably are either on the way towards some of the European countries then to reach Ukraine, or maybe those tanks, first batch is already in Kyiv controlled territory. We just don't know it yet. But anyways, as I said, first of 49 vehicles already been placed in the cargo ships, but the government would not discuss their current location of their expected arrival or their expected arrival date of these tanks in Europe for security reasons. The Americans remain secretly disappointed by Australia's decision and doubt the effectiveness of the vehicles on the battlefield. Last year, before Donald Trump returned to their presidency, we warned the Australians that sending these Abrams tanks would be difficult and that when they finally got to their battlefield, the Ukrainians would have a hard time maintaining them. One US official told ABC on conditions of anonymity. And we have quote here, "We are beginning to wonder whether the Ukrainians really want these vehicles. The roof of their tank is their weakest point of their Abrams, and this is a drone warfare," the US officials said. And it's not just the roof, by the way, of the tanker. Basically, side armor and with exception of frontal armor, Abrams is extremely vulnerable, as any other Western tank is, by the way. Right, and on top of that, these tanks are extremely heavy and they're difficult to maintain. These Western tanks, including Abrams, by the way. And I guess US officials were opposing decision of Australia to transfer these 49 retired Abrams tanks because they don't want to see on the battlefield more burned down Abramses, right? Because this is not a good optics for US military industrial complex. That's what US officials probably care most. just hardly they care about Ukraine or Ukrainians, by the way, for sure. Interesting news, sir. Interesting news, sir. As I said, maybe those Australian Abrams tanks already are in Q-controlled territory and soon to be destroyed in that case. TASS news agency is also reporting that according to Russian Defense Ministry's report, yesterday's report about previous 24 hours, Kiev regime lost on all sectors of the front line, more than 1,200 military personnel killed and wounded, which is a quite high number, obviously. And whenever I see this type of reports from Russian Defense Ministry, which is basically daily update, isn't it, from MOD, I always remember these statements that Trump loves to say nowadays about 5,000 casualties on the battlefield. I wonder who told him this number, 5,000, while because in reality, Kiev regime is, for example, is losing twice and sometimes 3 times more military personnel than 5,000 on a weekly basis, by the way. Let's continue. And when it comes to US President Donald Trump, he will call Russian president today. That's what he himself announced. So let's read what he posted on his Truth Social. I will be speaking by the phone to President Vladimir Putin of Russia on Monday at 10 a.m., I guess 10 a.m. Washington time. The subject of the call will be stopping the bloodbath that is killing on average more than 5,000 Russian and Ukrainian soldiers. I mean, he is fixated on this number, 5,000, I guess. And also, Trump wants to discuss with Russian President trade. And quote here, I will then be speaking to President Zelensky of Ukraine, and then with the President Zelensky, various members of NATO. Hopefully, it will be productive day. A ceasefire will take place, and this very violent war and war that should never have happened will end. God bless us all. So, okay, Trump most likely will call Russian president today. And in today's evening news, dear friends, at 7 o'clock in evening Moscow time, I will of course share whatever information will be available on this matter also. But if we being serious, I mean, what kind of outcome we should expect from this phone conversation between Trump and Putin? Immediate outcome, at least. I don't think we should expect anything at all. And probably after a phone conversation, if it will take place, both sides will just say some diplomatic stuff that it was an interesting conversation, sides exchange opinions about this and that topic, and agreed to continue consultations or talks on various topics, including Ukrainian crisis, because obviously Russian president cannot agree on immediate ceasefire, 30-day ceasefire that globalists and globalist control regimes in Europe are demanding together with their proxy regime in Kiev, right? Russian side was very clear, I think, in recent Istanbul talks, during the recent Istanbul talks. At this point, sides did manage to reach an agreement to release 1,000 POWs, each prisoners of the war, from each side, which is a good agreement, obviously. And the sides also reach agreement to present in short time detailed plan how each side sees ceasefire, implementation of their ceasefire. So therefore, while there is a disagreement in the place, I don't think Trump is in a position to demand immediate ceasefire, and I don't think he will even try to do so. So therefore, I struggle to understand what is going to be real, why he is calling Russian president now. I don't know. We will find out. Anyways, by the way, discussion or talks are better than hostility. So maybe this increased dialogue, let's say, between Washington and Moscow will truly help at one point to de-escalate. Let's hope so. Meanwhile, as I already said, Russian president was and Russian delegation in Istanbul was very clear about Russian goals, and RT reported yesterday and many other media outlets that Russian president once again outlined results Moscow seeks in regards to Ukraine. So let's go through this news here. Russia is seeking to achieve a lasting and sustainable peace by eliminating the root causes of the Ukraine conflict. President Vladimir Putin has stated in an extract of an interview released by Russia One TV on Sunday, yesterday. In this clip posted by journalist Pavel Zarubin on Telegram, Putin stated that Russia has enough strength and resources to bring what was started in 2022 to its logical conclusion, while accomplishing Moscow's key goals. And we all know what these key goals are: demilitarization and denazification of Ukraine, protection of minorities, right? Protection of all people, including minorities, and including Russian-speaking minorities, people that consider themselves to be Russians or part of Russian world, that are prosecuted basically by Kyiv regime since 2014, when US orchestrated, in cooperation with a number of European states, bloody coup d'etat in Kiev. Russia wants to eliminate their causes that initiated this crisis, create conditions for long-term sustainable peace, and ensure the security of the Russian state and the interests of our people in those territories that we always talk about, he added. The president was apparently referring to Crimea, Donetsk, and Lugansk People's Republics and the regions of Kherson and Zaporozhye, which overwhelmingly voted in favor of joining the Russia in referendums in 2014 and 2022. So this is Russian position, by the way, which is don't really changed since 2022, and time to time Russian president and some other high-ranking officials basically are repeating themselves and once again highlighting where Russia stands, and therefore it will be better, I think, if Western elites, especially in US, by the way, if Trump and his administration really seeks the escalation, if they will listen to Russian leadership and Russia's positions a little more carefully, that will help. That will help to avoid at least some misunderstandings. And by the way, as I already said, Trump intends to call Russian president today, and before he will call here in Moscow, number of European allies of Kyiv regime wants to have also a conversation with the Trump. Among them, a newly appointed Chancellor of Germany, Friedrich Merz. So, according to, German Chancellor Friedrich Merz said that he had agreed to talk with US President Donald Trump. The topic will be the phone talks between Russian President Vladimir Putin and his American counterpart, scheduled for May 19th. According to the German Chancellor, 3 more heads of the states will take a part in the conversation: UK, France, and Poland. Merz added that he had already discussed the upcoming conversation between Vladimir Putin and Donald Trump with US Secretary of State Marco Rubio. We can only hope for further progress, the Bild newspaper quotes the German Chancellor as saying, and we'll understand what is going on, isn't it? Globalists don't want no peace. Globalists want globalists and their puppet regimes, by the way, in Europe, in the very countries that Merz mentioned, UK, France, Germany itself also, and Poland and a number of others, they are not ready to acknowledge that they lost this proxy war that they are waging against Russia, right? They are not ready to face the reality, and therefore they will push as much and as long as they can for a prolongation of this conflict. Even though they are talking about this 30-day ceasefire on daily basis. But in reality, we all know that they care not about peace. What they want is a break for their proxy regime in Kiev and forces of this proxy regime, right? We all know that. And while organizing this phone conversation between leaders of France, Germany, Poland, and UK with Trump, I think globalists and globalist puppets want to influence US president to basically derail potential de-escalation between Washington and Moscow. That's what is happening. And I don't have strong opinion or strong prediction, I don't have strong opinion to predict how Trump will react and what should we expect from Washington. Situation may go both ways, isn't it? US may go on the ladder of de-escalation, or exactly opposite might also happen. And as I reported in previous updates, there is a preparations in US Senate, isn't it, and Congress to introduce additional sanctions on Russia and also sanctions on the countries that are cooperating with Russia, right? So therefore, we should wait and see. Situation between, or relationships between Moscow and Washington might either improve in upcoming days and weeks, at least step by step, or will deteriorate on the levels and maybe even beyond that we see during the Biden's administration. But globalists clearly are not happy with these talks between delegations of Russia and US and between leadership of Russia and the US. This is obvious. And when it comes to Merz, dear friends, official representative of Russian Foreign Ministry, Maria Zakharova, commented about his statements in regards to long-range cruise missile deliveries to Kiev, Taurus missile deliveries to Kiev. And let's see what she has to say. According to the official representative of the Russian Foreign Ministry, in reality, no one will know how many units and when Berlin handed over to the Kiev regime. Wow. So German Chancellor Friedrich Merz only wants to remove this issue of long-range missiles supplies to Ukraine from public discussion. In reality, no one will know how many units Berlin has transferred to Kiev regime, said Russian Foreign Ministry spokeswoman Maria Zakharova. And I don't know if she is applying that Berlin already sent missiles. It does sound like maybe Germany already sent missiles to Kiev-controlled territory, and also German specialists to work with these missiles. Maybe that's what Maria Zakharova is saying, or maybe she's making different point that Merz don't want to talk about Taurus missiles, just to take this topic into fog of war so that no one knows what is happening and when and how. But I think Russian intelligence will know anyways. And unfortunately, there is a possibility, of course, that these German long-range cruise missiles, Taurus missiles, already been transferred into Ukraine. And in that case, of course, Moscow, once these missiles being launched, by the way, and then they potentially can reach even Moscow, theoretically speaking, once these missiles being deployed against Russia, then Moscow probably will have no option to retaliate and retaliate hard. Let's see what is going to happen. Meanwhile, Vzгляд newspaper is reporting that UK and EU will sign today new defense union agreement. This was originally reported by New York Times. So British and EU leaders plan to pledge historic defense and energy cooperation at the London summit aimed declining US role. Meeting to discuss a new era of cooperation between UK and the European Union will take place in London on Monday. Today, New York Times reports key defense and security agreements aimed at boosting Europe's military capabilities as the United States involvement shrinks is expected to be signed. So, okay, we will find out today what kind of agreements Brussels and London will sign up for. But in any case, both either side is extremely hostile towards Russia, and they will use this anti-Russian hysteria to basically justify whatever agreements they're going to sign up for, and also whatever promises they're going to make about increasing spendings on formally defense and security, but in reality to enrich military industrial complex and themselves. That's what it is really, because Russia is not threatening EU or UK, never did really, and has no intention. And if not provoked, hardly anyone, by the way, here in Russia even think about any aggression against any EU member state, NATO member state, or any country whatsoever, by the way, in this world. If not provoke, vast majority here in Russia of people and politicians will be happy to live their lives, right, in peace and tranquility, without even thinking to be aggressive towards anyone or anybody. Meanwhile, by the way, NATO is increasing its aggressions against Russia, and a couple of days ago I reported about attempt of Estonian and Polish militaries to hijack oil tanker in the Baltic Sea that was heading towards a Russian port. And well, in that instance, at some point, a Russian fighter jet, Su-35 fighter jet, arrived at the scenery, and after that, these attackers from Estonia and Poland retreated, and vessel reached its destination. A Jaguar was the name of that vessel, and even though our situation was de-escalated at that particular moment, obviously Russian leadership take the note of that, and well, according to reports, one tanker that left Estonian port was detained by Russian side in Russian waters. I guess as a sort of not retaliation necessarily, but as a reminder that this game can be played by two. Russia also can do some stuff that not just these Chihuahua states in Baltics, Estonia, Lithuania, Latvia, but also other countries, other hostile countries in Europe might don't like. So this is a message to basically leave alone merchant ships that are coming in and out of Russian ports, or else. That's what this message is about, I guess. But anyways, let's go through this news. Estonia accuses Russia of detaining a tanker. Russia has detained a Green Admire tanker that left the Estonian port of Sillamäe for Rotterdam. Estonian Foreign Minister Margus Tsahkna reported on social media X. According to available information, the vessel was moving through Russian territorial waters. The tanker carrying the shale oil flies the flag of Liberia and is owned by the Greek company Aegean Shipping. According to Estonian national broadcasting portal ERR, the Green Admirer is currently anchored off the Russian island of Gotland. The Estonian Transport Department has announced that from now on, ships arriving in and leaving similar Sillamäe will not enter Russian territorial waters. There have been no official statements from the Russian side on this matter yet. Kommersant is following the development of this story, and maybe today Russian side will react on this information. And by the way, these vessels are huge vessels, especially are taking a route through Russian waters because it's safer in that way. There is other routes, obviously, but waters are shallow there. and it's quite risky to take those other routes. That's why these vessels, huge vessels, were choosing to go through Russian territorial waters. And after all, who said that if necessary, Russia cannot take action against any vessel anywhere in the Baltics, in the North Sea, or elsewhere? So this is just a message, by the way. I don't think Moscow really wants to escalate. I think Moscow is just sending message that, you know what, let's leave merchant shipping alone. Let's not be destructive. Because lately, by the way, especially lately, NATO countries were extremely destructive, isn't it? In the Baltics especially. When almost every other week, vessel was detained, merchant vessel, that was moving either towards some of the Russian ports or out of Russian port. And, Moscow obviously could not tolerate such a behavior of NATO countries. Hopefully, message will be heard and the NATO countries will act accordingly and no longer cause any threats to civilian shipping in the Baltics. Otherwise, as I said, Moscow can also play this game, and much better than NATO countries can. That's for sure. Let's continue with the more news, dear friends. And, elections in Romania, of course, we have to mention this topic. RIA Novosti and many other media outlets worldwide, not just here in Russia, are reporting that, Bucharest mayor has won presidential elections in Romania. I know many members of our community and there are many people worldwide, maybe majority, even vast majority, will doubt that these elections were free and fair. But, that's official numbers that we are getting from Bucharest. So, Mayor of Romania's capital, Nicosor Dan, won the second round of the Romanian presidential elections after 100% of the votes were counted, according to country's Central Election Commission. The politician was supported by 53.60% of the voters. Dan's rival, the head of their opposition party, Alliance for the Unification of Romanians, George Simion, has 46.40% of the votes. He has already admitted defeat and congratulated his opponent on his victory. And this is true, dear friends. I shared on my Telegram and Twitter X page a short video from Simeon where he basically is admitting defeat. So it is what it is. Despite the expectations of many that Simeon is going to become next president of Romania, no. Nicosur Dan will. And on topic of these elections, dear friends, France has denied claims of Romanian election interference. The French Foreign Ministry has vehemently denied undertaking any attempts to interfere in Romania's presidential elections after Telegram founder Pavel Durov claimed yesterday that he was asked to silence Romanian conservative voices on the platform, on the Telegram platform, ahead of Sunday's runoff. Which is interesting, by the way, which is interesting. If there was nothing there, I don't think French Foreign Ministry would react on statements from Pavel Durov. I guess Pavel Durov has not just his word, but also evidences to confirm claims that he is making about attempts of France to intervene, influence the outcome of the elections in Romania. And he responded, by the way. Pavel Durov responded. So Telegram's Durov names French official he accused of censorship request. So, excuse me, Telegram founder Pavel Durov has claimed that French foreign intelligence chief Nicolas Lerner personally asked him to censor conservatives on his platform ahead of the contentious rerun of the Romania's presidential elections. The Russian-born entrepreneur said he refused this request. So, I mean, he is very direct, isn't it? He's naming the names. So, head of French foreign intelligence, Nicolas Lerner, was directly asking Durov to suppress conservative voices in Romania. And according to Durov, he refused. But by the way, we all understand that if this person, and this is just one example, isn't it, from globalist controlled countries, and globalist controlled many other countries, right? In Europe, influential ones like France, I mean, relatively at least influential ones. And if French foreign intelligence chief was trying to pressure Durov and the Telegram, then one may assume that probably he did very same with other platforms, right? With YouTube, maybe they tried with Rumble, with Facebook, Instagram, with all of them. And I mean, if you ask me, I will say maybe Rumble refused because Rumble leadership did demonstrate a couple of times that they don't care. And after all, Rumble is banned in France, so there is some personal beef there, I guess. But when it comes to other platforms, by the way, I'm not sure that they would not suppress conservative or traditionalist voices on their platforms. So clearly globalists were involved in Romania's internal affairs, and after all, they derailed first presidential elections 6 months ago, and almost jailed, by the way, leading figure in that elections, Georgescu, right? And they might still jail him. And now, they did manage to put in position of president a person that they wanted. And somehow they did manage to persuade this person, I mean, Simeone, opposition leader, to acknowledge defeat. I don't know what they have on him, but, let's see what members of our community from Romania will say on this matter. But, well, I guess topic is closed, at least for now. And there was also elections in Poland, by the way, presidential elections, and we have some results in regards to that. Yesterday afternoon, preliminary results come about these elections. So, Polish presidential elections, Liberal Warsaw Mayor Dzaskowski was leading with 30.8% of the votes. This was a preliminary data for yesterday evening. Conservative Nawrocki from largest opposition party, Law and Justice, was just behind with 29.1%. But this morning, a TASS news agency reported that after 99.7% of the votes was counted, Trzaskowski was leading still with 31.2% of the votes, and Nawrocki had 29.7% of the votes. So it's going to be second tour in Poland, and well, one of these guys is going to become next president. All I can say is no matter which of these guys are going to become a president of Poland, unfortunately, nothing will change for the better in relationships between Moscow and Warsaw. That is a sad part of it, but otherwise, I don't really care who's going to be Polish president, by the way. I would like to see the escalation and friendly relationships between Russia and Poland. Why not? But seems like this is not really possible, at least for now, and next decade also, maybe two. I don't know. RIA Novosti, meanwhile, is reporting that Israel launches large-scale ground operation in Gaza. Israeli Defense Forces have launched a large-scale ground operation in the Gaza Strip. The country's armed forces press service reported over the past day, IDF forces under the command of their Southern Command, including both conscripts and reservists, have launched large-scale ground operation throughout the northern and southern Gaza Strip as a part of Operation Gideon Chariots, the statement said. So unfortunately, more escalation in the Middle East, more escalation in the Gaza Strip, which obviously means more casualties among civilians, more destruction. Tragedy continues, unfortunately. Meanwhile, Hamas is ready to release up to 9 hostages in exchange of for a ceasefire, according to CNN. The Palestinian movement Hamas is ready to release up to 9 hostages held in the Gaza Strip in exchange for a 2-month ceasefire in their enclave, CNN reported. And well, at this point, I did not see any response from Israeli side on this initiative from Hamas. But if Israel just launched this large-scale military operation, I don't think Netanyahu's government will listen to this proposal. But let's see. Let's wait and see. Maybe international community will manage to influence the situation and maybe we will see some de-escalation in that case. But it seems unrealistic at this point. International community is probably at its weakest point ever. And some might even question that existence of international community, because all these international organizations seems like are talking just for themselves and making statements just for themselves, because they have almost no influence on anything really at this point. Meanwhile, yesterday, special envoy of U.S. President Steve Witkoff, during their interview on ABC, stated that U.S. has one very clear red line on Iran. We cannot allow even 1% of an enrichment capabilities. But Witkoff claimed he wants to get the solution. Well, this is a take or demand of US that Iran's leadership several times already rejected. But I don't know. I mean, you can listen to this video, by the way, on my Telegram. I'm not sure if I will open it now, if you will hear sound. Let's check it for... I've been told by family members that there is no sound, so therefore you can check out this video on my Telegram. But this take that there is a red line for US, that Iran should get rid of all the infrastructure for enrichment of uranium. This might not help with the escalation, because we have several responses from Iranian side. So enrichment will continue. Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi stated, but he also said that he is ready to discuss no nukes being made. So Iran has no plans to build nuclear weapons. Iran is open to discuss topic of additional reassurances that Iran has no intention to build nuclear weapons. But yet again, currently positions of two sides seems like are in parallel universes, because Iran says they're not going to get rid of enrichment capabilities, and Iran is and US is demanding entire infrastructure of Iran when it comes to enrichment, or all the facilities where centrifuges are located and so on should be dismantled. So sides are very far apart right now from reaching any sort of deal. We also have statement of Iran's president. So Iran's president said no sanctions will force Tehran to consider. Sanctions are not capable of persuading forcing Iran basically, or Iranian authorities to succumb to external pressure. Iranian President Mahmoud Pezeshkian said in Tehran on Sunday, yesterday, we have quote here, they want to impose sanctions against us. He is asking, we are under them all the time. Press TV quotes him as saying, we will never give up our peaceful nuclear program, no matter what they do, we will not give up. The president assured the public. And by the way, what I think is that if US is honest, and I have some doubts about it, but if US is honest in this negotiation, honest player or honest side, then I think with involvement of Moscow, Beijing maybe, or New Delhi, some compromises may be found. After all, Russia might take over this infrastructure in Iran, or China or India, maybe US. By the way, according to some reports, Iran is even proposing consortium to be created of Iran, with participation of Iran, Arab countries, and United States. And this consortium to be charged of these facilities where enrichment is taking place. And US will have a direct control and knowledge of the enrichment processes. So according to some reports, this is what Iran is proposing. But if Washington is still demanding enrichment or infrastructure to be dismantled, then obviously Iranian leadership and many people worldwide are questioning how honest US is really in these negotiations, right? And as I said many times before, I think at one point US delegation will just walk away. Washington will just walk away from these talks. They will say they tried diplomatically, it did not work, and they will resolve to military action. And I'm afraid US is getting closer and closer to direct war with Iran, which is going to be devastation for the Middle East and for the rest of the world, for sure. It will have devastating impact, 100%. But currently, it seems to me the trajectory that US is moving is clearly towards military collision with Iran, which is unfortunate. But yet again, let's see. Maybe I'm misreading something in this big geopolitical picture, and maybe Washington and Iran will truly manage to de-escalate. Let's hope so. We will find out soon. And when it comes to Middle East, dear friends, I have this report in connection to the region. So Putin invites Arab leaders to Moscow summit. Russian President Vladimir Putin has invited the heads of states and the governments of Arab League countries to attend the first Russia-Arab summit scheduled for October 15 in Moscow. The Kremlin published the invitation on its official website on Sunday, as Arab leaders gathered in Baghdad to discuss the war in Gaza and a number of other topics. We have quote here: "We intend to further actively develop constructive dialogue with the League of the Arab States, as well as the friendly relations with all its members," Putin said. In this regard, I would like to invite all leaders of your organizations, member states, as well as the Secretary General of the League to take part in the first Russia-Arab summit, which we plan to hold on October 15. This is quote from Putin's statement. Well, I'm quite sure Arab countries will respond positively. They will accept invitation, and I have no doubts that vast majority of Arab countries will be represented in this summit on October 15 by heads of the states, by leaders of these countries. Also, dear friends, there are a few more news, and I will end this morning news live stream program. RT is reporting that Portugal targets France in a power link dispute after recent massive blackouts that happened in Spain and Portugal. This is reported originally by Financial Times. So Portugal plans to ask the European Commission to pressure France over limited electricity supplies from their letter. The Financial Times reported on Sunday. citing Energy Minister Maria da Graça Garwalo. The move follows the April 28 blackout that left millions across Spain and Portugal and parts of southern France without electricity for up to 10 hours. Portugal is reportedly blaming Paris for failing to complete and expand with Spain shortcomings that Lisbon argues exacerbated their blackout by restricting cross-border energy support. The power outage has been described as the largest in recent European history. And this is interesting, isn't it, dear friends, that European countries, even though Europe is not yet facing a massive energy crisis, elements of it is already clearly visible, and European countries already are in dispute, let's say, with diplomatically, but in reality, hostility between European countries is increasing and will only continue to increase in upcoming years and decades, because all of them are dependent on energy, obviously, and majority of them will experience significant shortcuts in this regards. Already are experiencing. And on the topic of energy, dear friends, you might be you're not going to be surprised, but some people that not really paying attention to all these developments might be surprised that while Europe is already experiencing significant issues with energy, EU bureaucracy and the leadership of number of European states are still pushing the narrative that Europe should get rid of any supplies of energy from Russia. And the Slovak Prime Minister responded on that. And let's go through this news. Let's see what he has to say. Russia is a major supplier of liquefied natural gas, LNG, to Europe. Slovak Prime Minister Robert Fico stated, which is true, by the way, Russia was a major gas supplier when it comes to pipeline gas, and certain volume of Russian pipeline gas still is reaching Europe through Turk Stream pipeline. But after destruction of Nord Stream pipelines, after Ukraine cut off Europe from Russian gas through pipeline network that Kyiv regime is controlling under its territory, well, Russia starts significantly increasing LNG supplies to Europe, right? Liquefied natural gas, and become in quite a short time one of the major suppliers, because yet again, European countries need energy. European economies need energy, right? People need energy. So despite all these statements of all sorts of Russophobes in the leadership of EU and EU member states, well, there is only a few ways they're going to get energy, isn't it? And there is not much choice, really. Either you'll take Russian energy, or you will you will pay much more, and your economy will suffer much greater if you take energy from other sources that are far away and sell their energy much more expensive. Anyways, we have a quote here. Russia is currently the second largest liquefied gas supplier to Europe. Roberto Fico told their TA-free television channel he slammed the European Union's policy of carteling Russian energy imports to the EU countries, and stressed that his country is interested in supplies of cheap energy sources from Russia. According to Slovak Prime Minister, the ban on Russian energy imports is an attempt to drop another iron curtain. This is an official policy of their creating a new iron curtain between Europe, Russia, and the East. As such, he said, recalling that a number of European countries are supplied with Russian nuclear fuel for their nuclear plants. The war in Ukraine will ultimately end, but what are we going to do? Erect a 100-meter iron curtain? he added, he asked basically, and well, Brussels bureaucrats probably will say yes, because they don't care about it. They are unelected elements, isn't it? They don't care about people. They don't care about economy. They are bureaucrats. All they care is whatever geopolitical agenda they have or their globalist masters. That's all it is. And unfortunately, I don't think things gonna change in Europe anytime soon towards improvement, because it seems like societies, majority of the societies in EU member states are in a deep sleep, by the way, and I'm not even sure if they are capable of waking up. So there is nothing that would stop destructive policies of their bureaucrats, right, or the globalists. And this is one of the reasons why I'm saying that in the long run, not even long, but in medium terms, by the way, like 25, 30, 35 years, we will see that Europe will turn into loosely, the European part of Eurasian continent will turn into loosely relevant or completely irrelevant part of the continent, right? That's the direction that Europe is heading right now, and the only countries that will be in a better position is going to be countries that will maintain good working relationships with Russia. First of all, with Russia. That's just how it is, and through Russia with the rest of the world. It is what it is. But anyways, dear friends, I will end this update now. Hopefully you will find it informative and interesting, useful. There was no rant on Rumble or Super Chat. As I already said in the beginning, I had no questions through donation platforms. So therefore, I have to end this live stream now. Hopefully, you will find this new format interesting and useful. And before I go, dear friends, let me remind you that this evening at 7 o'clock Moscow time, they're gonna be. I will start evening news update, evening news live stream, and I hope you and many more members of our community will join the stream. This is it for now, and dear friends, if you can, please don't forget to click that like button and leave some commentary, not just in the chat but also in the comment section. That potentially helps to reach wider audience. And well, this is it for now. Thank you all, have a wonderful day and take care.